Jack.
Jack. Okay, thanks.
Tino.
Which Tino?
He was on the film with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. I think the theme throughout that whole session was this incredible diversity of relationships that people have with the oceans, from thrill-seeking to reverence, substance, to connecting with future generations, and also sort of mental health. So maybe you can start by talking a little about sort of the emotions you were trying to evoke with your film.
Yeah, that's a good question. So our film was with Dane and Anna Gudauskas, and they're just really fun, loving people. And I think going into the film, our biggest goal is just to like put something into the world right now, because I think the world is needing more positive energy. So we're just like, let's go create something positive. Nothing serious, just fun and quirky, and that was our approach. And we didn't overthink it.
Yeah, it was really irreverent and fun. And I'm curious, why the Aleutian Islands, and how did you guys kind of connect with the little story that you created?
That's a good question. So the Aleutians, because it had been on Anna's radar for a long time. She loves cold water surfing, and we were friends with her. She's like, I'm going on this trip. Let's do something that's out of the box and different. So we went up there, lived on this tiny little boat. He and I were bunk buddies, and we made it work through one of the biggest hurricanes in 2 decades. So that's something that you didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and Jack, my sense is that your film was in some ways nostalgic for this time when we, all of us who are, my age, pour through these magazines because they were sort of the Bibles, and there are these iconic images that are sort of seared into your brains over those times. So I'm kind of curious, now that we have instant gratification, everybody's got a camera in their pocket. Do those iconic images still matter, or how maybe is it different?
Yeah, I hope they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we started talking about the kernel of the idea and stuff, Travis Frey, who produced the piece, we were thinking a lot about just how the sport had moved from like all the media being print-based to now sort of we've moved to the internet, and sort of like you're saying, like, is there space for a Tom Curran cutback to like have the impact now that it did back then, and it still does today. So that was kind of the foundation of what we were thinking about, but we didn't want to just like make a thing that was too preachy and like talking at the audience, but something that's more just a celebration of like those images and just reminding people like they're out there, and to make room for them, hopefully.
And do you think there are images today, even though we're kind of being fed a gazillion things from every direction, that still can kind of jump out and have that impact?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, actually, and I have been a lot. Nothing comes to mind. I'm sure there's something, but again, like Grant touches on it in the piece, like the staying power of a moment or an image feels like 48 hours is a long time now, because there's so many inputs and there's such a high volume of content coming out. Even someone, towing into a bomb at Chopu or whatever, it's like everyone sees it and shares it for 24 hours, and then it kind of moves on to the next thing. So, yeah, I don't know. It's also, I think the nature of how we experience still photography has changed a lot. Like if you look at a lot of the most popular like Instagram accounts, or even like Stab or Surfline, a lot of it is video based. Like if you go to WSL's Instagram account, for example, you're looking at 99% video clips, right? So it's like you have to be following a photographer's account and seeing that photographer's work, and that's kind of how you're experiencing it. So it kind of democratizes it in a way, like you have the power to choose the images you want to see and the photographers you like, but it also, there's not this unifying thing that's showing up on everyone's doorstep once a month that we all see and can talk about in the lineup and stuff.
That is true. We don't all see the same things anymore, which probably is causing a lot of the strife in the world at the same time. It seems like one of the other things is that people were venturing, there was a movie about surfing Kamchatka the other night, like Iceland, like we're venturing farther afield, and is that part of your motivation in going up to Alaska to find some place that's sort of different?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we got there, we weren't sure if we were going to score or not. We didn't know there was a big storm coming. It was kind of like, let's go find some unsurfed waves was the goal with Anna and Dane. And for first 2 days, we really thought we were going to get skunked, but kind of just riding the edge of a massive hurricane, we totally scored. So we surfed 5 unsurfed waves, and most of those are in the film. Obviously, we didn't like shout them out or anything, but
Sure.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. It was mostly just like, let's go surf something that nobody surfed, and if not, we'll just bail back to the spots we know of. But it was definitely like an exploration type adventure, and a lot of story there. But I think that, again, like the lighthearted kind of just joyful piece was the best way to go with it, given the times and all. So, yeah, just went to kind of explore and find some new waves.
Take us through a little bit of sort of what it took to get where you went. Like, how many days were you out? Sort of how did you get there? I know you don't want to tell us exactly where you were at,
it's
but
okay.
just generally.
I think like it was maybe like what, 9 or 12 days. 12 days on the boat, and we just meandered through the Shumagan Aleutian Islands in there, and kind of pulled into a cove to just anchor up for the night originally. Because the storm was just coming through, and the swell was insane. Big crossing, everybody was feeling a little nauseous, and when we got into the cove, you could see this massive explosion on the rocks, and then we kept pulling in, and you just saw this perfect point just cruising through, and suddenly nobody was feeling sick, and everybody was suiting up. And
I think the next thing we knew, Dane was in the water.
Yeah, we turned around and Dane was in the water.
He's already out there on the waves.
Yeah.
Just the excitement after the storm was amazing.
Yeah. It really was incredible, and it just brought it all, like, the exciting moment, like when you're filming something, when the thing happens and all of a sudden you're scoring, it's just a really incredible, like, moment where everybody just works super hard really quickly to get together and, like, get in the water. And it was like you blinked and he was already standing up on a wave.
Froth.
Yeah, it was incredible. So that just kind of kept happening. So we just pull into another cove, and then it was just, like kind of hiding out or finding a place to anchor up, and then it would just happen again. And then we were like, whoa. So it was pretty awesome. Little exploratory kind of time up there. And nothing went right at all. So, like, we lost an anchor. It was just a wild.
It was a true adventure.
Yeah, it was fun and amazing, and the Milo crew is just so incredible. Just keeping like everybody super stoked, and Captain Mike's kind of character. So, yeah.
I gotta believe.
Awesome.
Thanks. Question for you, Jack. Did you talk to the photographers when you were putting that film together, and kind of what were their thoughts on sort of the state of things?
No.
Oh,
it was
okay.
very slapdash. Like the thing we shot with Grant, we actually showed him like 10 images to just react to. That was kind of the kernel of the idea. And we actually did have a couple younger photographers come in who shall remain nameless, because once we got into post and started looking at Grant's piece, which was like 2 hours that we ended up cutting down to 8 minutes, his like experience and breadth of knowledge is just, I think there's probably a handful of people that have that.
Yeah.
So it just felt like, let's focus this in on him, and then out of that came the sort of parallel narrative with the kid finding the magazine, and
Yep.
It just felt like that would be a nice sort of audience surrogate, and like way into the story to kind of ground your perspective for what we're trying to say.
Yeah. Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask me a question, sure. Or ask those guys.
I want to ask them one.
do
Yeah,
it.
I'm just curious, like doing a narrative piece like that, like balancing time and making room for the sort of storytelling side of it and all that. I'm assuming you had like a script and a shot list that you're trying to execute and stuff.
Yeah, so the funny thing going into this one is what you see right now is nothing like we imagined, because we got on this boat, this hurricane showed up, and everything that is like pretty much overnight shattered. So we cobbled that story together, Santino and I, kind of on the fly, like, okay, so with what we have left, how do we create a story? And it was really tricky. Like, that balance wasn't there like we imagined. I think that's part of filmmaking, is like just being nimble in that moment and figuring out, okay, what do we have left? What can we do with this? So that was a tricky one.
I think, like, to add to that too, like, we had one day where there was no waves, so we just went on shore and got weird. Like, we just stand up paddled to shore and like had Dane like stick his hair up behind rocks and got like super weird, and Tony was like putting this whole thing together in his head with the blonde tufted skimmer, and I was going with it. I just, I trusted him. And
so did you write the voiceover after the shoot, or was that something?
Yeah. And that was a trick too, because one of my friends, he is an incredible writer and he's very prose driven. He saw this piece as we put the edit together and he's like, it's a love story. I was like, this is not a love story. This is fun and it's quirky. So we also had to like strike that balance right there. So that kind of came through, like his vision as well as ours. It was a creative process. So we got there. Cool. Yeah.
I feel like that's another theme I've seen over the last couple days is people go into these stories and sometimes the stories tell themselves. So it sounds like you guys had a little bit of that.
Yeah, they just kind of reveal themselves while you're there. Like, okay, what I had in mind, 4,000 miles away or whatever it was, wasn't the reality. So let's figure it out. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Questions from the audience out there for these guys?
Did you name the spots you found?
Yeah, Dane named most of them, didn't he?
First wave on each named them. So Anna named 1 or 2, and then Dane named, I believe, all the other 3.
What's your favorite name of the one?
I really like 2 of the names. I think Splash Mountain is the one where we kind of pulled into that cove and sort of exploded up against the rocks, and you couldn't really see the swell coming in, so once it exploded on the rocks, you just knew to start paddling. So Dane named that one Splash Mountain, and then there's another spot where I kept just getting bumped into stuff filming in the water, and Anna was surfing the first wave there with pretty much any kind of wildlife you could imagine was there. It was amazing. It was just so lively, and she named that spot the zoo. And that was pretty cool spot for sure.
Are you gonna plan to do any more of those photography? It seems like that's kind of almost teed up to be a series.
I hope so.
So many great photos out there and so many great photographers. Like, feels like you could kind of go on a journey and make a series of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I had not thought of it. That was sort of part of a series that Red Bull was producing called In Plain Sight. And if people liked that one, I encourage you to look. There's a bunch of different other kind of iterations on YouTube of different surf stories and stuff that are really cool. But the series ended up getting canned, so there's no kind of path forward. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think you'd need to change the format or something. You can't have a young boy finding a new surf cover every episode. Or maybe you can. I don't know. But it's good food for thought.
Maybe in other sports, maybe see really close to see one skate. There's so many iconic.
Yeah, that would be tough. And I don't know that I have the background to do that justice, but it would be cool for sure.
Question about financing. You see a lot of films that are getting financed by big companies, Getty, et cetera. Do you guys search out that financing first and secure that before you go out? I know you get pay for your paper if you're going to go, but it's interesting to learn more about that.
That's a tough one. We didn't make any money. We did it because we wanted to be on the island and to be on this trip. So in the end, we kind of partially financed it, and we had sponsorship from 3 brands, and those were Billabong, Vare, and Hydro Flask.
Yeah, like I was saying, that was initially part of a series for Red Bull where they were giving filmmakers a small lump sum of cash and sort of a rough outline of an idea, but you were given a lot of creative freedom to kind of execute it how you wanted to. And yeah, that's pretty much how it got financed.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Every now and then you get lucky and get it funded beforehand, and sometimes you just can't wait for somebody to fund it, I think. So. Yeah,
but I would say typically anything you see that's creative, I would guess most of the pieces in this, the people who made it didn't make any money out of it or anything. You're just doing it because you're passionate about it.
All right, how about a round of applause for these guys and all these films? Thank you guys.